5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. And liftoff with the Falcon 9. Go Starlink.
Welcome back to another fresh edition of Space This Week, the weekly show in which we cover all the things that you have to look forward to in the magical world of spaceflight. We'll be traversing the globe this week, covering stories from Argentina to Alaska, from Japan to Texas, and we'll be meandering down the fascinating realm of all the things that happened in this week throughout space history. So, without further ado, let us begin with our first segment, all the stuff that we saw last week. The most exciting news from last week was the successful launch of SpaceX's 11th Starlink mission and the successful landing of the first stage on the Of Course I Still Love You drone ship on the 18th of August. This is SpaceX's 100th mission overall, a truly landmark achievement for the company, and the historicness of this mission doesn't end there. This is the first time that a single Falcon 9 booster has been used for 6 separate spaceflights, and it's looking in pretty good shape. I certainly wouldn't be surprised if we've got to witness a 7th launch from this faithful booster soon. The 58 Starlink satellites successfully deployed, bringing the number of satellites in SpaceX's ambitious Starlink network to a cool 653. We're still a little way off their ultimate goal of having approximately 12,000 satellites in orbit, but this launch has certainly brought us a little bit closer to that number. As usual, SpaceX offered a ride-share service for this launch, and coming along this time was Planet Labs' 3 Earth observation satellites, which joined 18 other imaging satellites in the SkySat constellation, where they will assist in providing imagery, high-definition video, and analytics services. Overall, this was a very exciting and very impressive mission, and I cannot wait until we get to cover the next Starlink launch, which should hopefully be happening in just a few weeks. Moving swiftly along, on the same day last week, we also saw the HTV-9 depart from the ISS. It left the space station with a lot of junk inside, including old batteries and unnecessary equipment, which burnt up with the spacecraft on re-entry over the South Pacific Ocean. This will be the last of Japan's HTV supply ships. The Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency is in the process of developing the spacecraft's successor, the HTV-X. The HTV-X will be lighter, and it will have new exterior space for unpressurized cargo, which means that there will be more room inside the pressurized module for larger cargo. The ability to store unpressurized cargo outside of the spacecraft means that the HTV-X can haul very, very large payloads, with the only real limiting factor being the fairing of its launch vehicle. Furthermore, the HTV-X will feature the new addition of a side hatch, which will allow for the late loading of cargo, which will make loading food and experiments much more convenient. Finally, in Starship news, we saw the SN6 complete pressure testing, and we saw the installation of a Raptor SN29 engine. It wasn't long afterward that SpaceX got to light the candle and see how it performed, and thankfully, the SN6 passed its static fire test with flying colours on August the 23rd. With a successful static fire under its belt, we may see the SN6 take flight rather soon. If SpaceX's road closure requests are anything to go by, then they plan for a 150-metre hop on the 28th of August, with backup dates on the 29th and the 30th. This is very exciting news indeed, so do check out next week's episode, where we will be sure to keep you in the loop. And that's all the coolest stuff that happened last week. Let's move swiftly along to the next 7 days. Our first mission this week is the launch of a classified spy satellite for the National Reconnaissance Office. The carrier of this secretive payload will be a Delta IV Heavy, which will take off from Cape Canaveral on the 26th of August. This will be the first Delta IV Heavy mission to launch since August 2018, and launch site preparations for this flight began in July 2019, so hopefully the long wait will be worth it. Unfortunately, the launch of this rocket is scheduled for a time that is outside visitor complex operation hours, so launch viewing opportunities will be unavailable. Our next mission is the SAOCOM-1B mission, which is the second of 2 satellites for Argentina's space agency. And these are Earth observation satellites designed to provide radar imagery to help emergency responders and to monitor the environment, including the collection of soil moisture measurements. The satellite is scheduled to launch aboard a Falcon 9 on the 27th of August from Cape Canaveral. Falcon 9s are always fun launches to behold, so we're definitely looking forward to seeing this mission take flight. Our final, hopeful launch will be the Rocket 3.1. This is Astra's latest small satellite launch vehicle, but so far, Astra's first orbital launch attempts for this rocket have been thwarted due to various factors, including poor weather and a boat being too close to the rocket's path. They still hope to attempt to launch in late August, so there is a chance that we'll finally get to see this rocket take flight at some point next week. On a final note, this week our moon will be in conjunction with both Jupiter and Saturn. A conjunction between 2 celestial bodies is when they appear to line up relatively near to one another in the night sky. The day for the Jupiter and Saturn moon conjunctions will vary depending on where you're watching from, but on either the 28th or the 29th of August, the moon and Jupiter will appear to align when seen through binoculars or the naked eye, though they are still too far apart to align through the lens of a telescope. Shortly afterward, on the 29th of August, the Moon and Saturn will appear to align. Again, you'll only be able to see this spectacle with the naked eye or binoculars, so don't forget to look up into the sky if the night is clear. And that wraps things up for all the stuff you have to look forward to over the next 7 days. And hey, if you guys are enjoying this video, then why not give this video a little old like, and if you're not subscribed, then consider subbing if you're enjoying the journey so far. But the journey, it's not over yet, ladies and gentlemen. Next up, we have This Week in Space History. We unfortunately begin space history this week on a sad note. On the 25th of August 2012, Neil Armstrong passed away at the age of 82. The man who became the first human to step foot on the moon died following complications during heart surgery. Armstrong's first rocket flight was on board the Gemini 8 mission as the command pilot in March 1966. This mission would become the first critical in-space failure of a US spacecraft after a stuck thruster sent the Gemini spacecraft into a spin. Luckily, Armstrong managed to regain control by steadying the spacecraft using the re-entry system thrusters. The failure caused the mission to end earlier than planned, but thanks to Armstrong, it at least ended safely. Armstrong would go on to become spacecraft commander for Apollo 11 3 years later, which, as we all know, is the mission he undertook his legendary first steps on the moon on. His moonwalk lasted 2 hours and 36 minutes, during which he and Buzz Aldrin collected 22 kilograms of lunar material. It was truly heartbreaking that Armstrong was not with us for the 50th anniversary of Apollo, and Buzz Aldrin stated, "My friend Neil took the small step but giant leap that changed the world and will forever be remembered as a landmark moment in human history. I had truly hoped that in 2019 we would be standing together along with our colleague Mike Collins to commemorate the 50th anniversary of our moon landing. Regrettably, this is not to be." Armstrong was never interested in the American hero status he received. He felt that he was just doing his job. His family wrote, "For those who may ask what they can do to honour Neil, we have a simple request. Honour his example of service, accomplishment and modesty, and the next time you walk outside on a clear night and see the moon smiling down at you, think of Neil Armstrong and give him a wink." Next up, we have the launch of the Advanced Composition Explorer, better known as ACE. On August the 25th, 1997, the ACE satellite launched on board a Delta II launch system. ACE was designed to study spaceborne energetic particles from the Sun-Earth L1 Lagrange point, which is about 1.4 million kilometers from Earth. NASA wanted to study the matter ejected from the Sun to establish the commonality and interaction between the Sun, Earth, and the Milky Way galaxy. ACE also provides local space weather updates, and it can give advanced warning of geomagnetic storms. NASA had initially planned for a 5-year mission duration, but with the satellite still up and running, I think it's fair to say that they have absolutely smashed this target. ACE continues to provide almost real-time coverage of solar wind parameters and measures solar energetic particle intensities. Unfortunately, one instrument, the Solar Energetic Particle Ionic Charge Analyzer, stopped sending data on February the 4th, 2005, but luckily all other instruments remain operational. NASA is hoping that this long-lived satellite will continue studying the Sun until around 2024. Now, we move on to the first spacecraft to successfully encounter another planet. This was, of course, the Mariner 2, which was launched on the 27th of August, 1962, aboard an Atlas Agena. The primary goal of the mission was to see if NASA could receive communications from Mariner 2 while it was in the vicinity of Venus, and also to perform radiometric temperature measurements of the planet. A secondary objective was to measure the interplanetary magnetic field and charged particle environment. On its way to Venus, the Mariner 2 managed to gather data from the Sun, measuring solar wind and interplanetary dust. It also detected high-energy charged particles coming from the Sun and even cosmic rays from outside of the solar system. The probe would go on to have a closest approach of 34,800 kilometers of Venus on December the 14th, 1962, after 110 days in space. The Mariner 2 performed a thorough analysis of the planet and discovered that Venus has cool clouds, but an extremely hot surface. On January the 3rd, 1963, it fell silent, having transmitted 11 million data bits back to Earth. Finally, we have the launch of the Van Allen probes, which took to the skies on an Atlas V on the 30th of August 2012. The Van Allen probes are two robotic spacecraft designed to study the Van Allen radiation belts that surround the Earth. The belts are part of a large space weather system, the same weather system that causes the auroras we can see from the North and South Pole. Despite being a spectacular natural phenomenon, these radiation belts do cause a few issues. They can disrupt satellites, cause power grid failures, and disrupt GPS communications. It is for this reason that scientists wanted to build the Van Allen probes, to provide us with better understanding of this region and to help provide insight into how to better design spacecraft that can survive the harsh environment of space. The mission's general scientific objectives were to discover which processes and conditions accelerate and transport the particles within the radiation belts, to calculate and understand the loss of electrons from the radiation belts, determine the balance between the processes that cause electron acceleration and the ones that cause losses, and finally, to discover how radiation belts change in the context of geomagnetic storms. As you can imagine, collecting this kind of data can bring many difficulties. Most satellites switch off during periods of intense space weather, but these probes needed to continue collecting data. While they were built to withstand the constant bombardment of particles and radiation that they would face, NASA weren't confident they would be able to survive for very long. The mission was only planned to last 2 years because of the concern about whether the satellite's electrons could survive this level of radiation. However, the strong probes proved NASA wrong, with the mission managing to last all the way until 2019, when the probes ran out of fuel and were subsequently deactivated. The 7-year mission is considered a record-breaking performance for satellites which had never before proven to be so radiation resistant for such a long period of time. The Van Allen probes continue to drift in orbit and are expected to re-enter the atmosphere during the 2030s. And that about wraps up everything cool that happened in space history this week. And thus concludes another episode of Space This Week. Guys, I do hope you're enjoying these episodes as much as I'm enjoying making them, and I hope you enjoy the episodes we've got to make in the future. For now, there's a thing on screen. It's an end screen, you know what they are, guys. The left-hand side is a link to the full Space This Week playlist, and the right-hand side is a video chosen for you by YouTube's recommendation algorithms based on your viewing habits. I don't know how it works. I'm going to leave it there, guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you next week.